There's a hidden danger that's been lurking in our homes, in our water, and yeah, even inside our own bodies. It's a threat that's so incredibly persistent, scientists have given it a really chilling nickname, forever chemicals. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what they are, where they came from, and the risk they might be posing every single time you cook a meal.
Okay, let's just dive right in, because this isn't some far-off theory. This is real. What you're looking at is a recent water quality report for a community near Luke Air Force Base. Now check out the levels for two of the most well-known forever chemicals, PFOS and PFOA. You see 11.5 and 9.7 parts per trillion. Now look right next to it at the brand new federal safety limit from the EPA, 4 parts per trillion. That means the water in some homes has more than double the level of contaminants the EPA now says is safe. So the first question that pops into your head has to be, how on earth did we get here? How did these things get into our water supply? And maybe the biggest surprise of all, what in the world does this have to do with that nonstick pan sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now?
To answer that, we first have to unmask the culprit. We need to get a handle on what we're actually talking about when we say forever chemicals.
Okay, so the official sciencey name is per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS for short. But that forever nickname, it is not an exaggeration. It really just comes down to basic chemistry. These are man-made chemicals, and they're built around a carbon-fluorine bond, which happens to be one of the absolute strongest bonds in organic chemistry. And that super strong bond makes them incredibly stable and useful for manufacturing, but it's also why they just don't break down. Not in the environment and not in our bodies. They just stick around and build up. And because they are so unbelievably good at repelling things like oil and water, they ended up, well, everywhere. We've used them for decades in all kinds of stuff. Firefighting foam, waterproof jackets, stain-resistant carpets, even pizza boxes. But the one place most of us probably encounter them every single day, you guessed it, that non-stick cookware that makes breakfast cleanup so easy. This widespread contamination wasn't just some unfortunate accident. It was the result of a decades-long deception. It's a story of corporate negligence so shocking, it was actually the basis for that movie, Dark Waters.
What's so wild about this story is just how long it took for the truth to come out. It all starts back in 1998 with a lawyer, Rob Bilott, and a farmer whose cows were just mysteriously dying off. After a long, brutal legal fight, Bilott uncovered that the chemical giant DuPont knew for decades that a key ingredient in Teflon, this chemical called C8, was toxic and that they were dumping it into the water. After years of denying everything, a massive health study, we're talking 70,000 people, finally confirmed a direct link between C8 and a bunch of serious diseases, including cancer. It all finally came to a head in a massive settlement of over $670 million.
Rob Bilott himself really summed it up perfectly. He said, "The system is rigged. They want us to believe that it'll protect us, but that's a lie. We protect us. We do. Nobody else." And that quote, it just gets to the very heart of the story, where the systems we trusted to keep us safe just failed. So let's talk about that a little more. The human cost. What is the actual unseen burden that comes with being exposed to these chemicals day in and day out?
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, leaves absolutely no room for doubt on this. Their official stance, which is based on years and years of research, is totally unequivocal. The science is now clear. Being exposed to certain PFAS chemicals poses a significant risk, even at those teeny-tiny microscopic levels we saw back in that water report.
And here's a look at what those risks actually are. And we're not talking about minor problems here. The documented links are serious. We're talking about an increased risk of certain cancers, like kidney and testicular cancer, liver damage, fertility and reproductive issues, developmental effects in kids, and even a weaker immune system. So how does it even get from the pan into your body? Well, let's go back to that pan in your kitchen one more time. Studies have actually shown that a single little scratch on the surface of a nonstick pan can release thousands, literally thousands of these plastic and PFS particles right into the food you're about to eat. So every time you cook, you could be adding a dose of these forever chemicals. Now the good news, finally, is that after decades of what felt like inaction, a national reckoning seems to be underway. The problem has gotten so huge that it's forced federal agencies to take some pretty historic action. And the potential impact of that action is just staggering. Look at this number. The EPA estimates that its new drinking water standards alone will cut down PFS exposure for about 100 million people. That's going to prevent thousands of deaths and tens of thousands of serious illnesses. It's a huge deal.
So here's the game plan. The EPA has laid out this clear three-part strategy. First up, restrict. Basically, get ahead of the problem and stop these chemicals from getting into the environment to begin with. Second, remediate. Speed up the cleanup of all the contamination that's already out there. And third, research. Pour money into the science to really understand the risks and find new ways to destroy these chemicals for good.
But maybe the most important piece of this whole strategy is accountability. By officially calling PFOA and PFOS hazardous substances under the Superfund law, the EPA now has the legal muscle to force the polluters to pay for the cleanup. And that shifts the massive cost from us, the taxpayers, back to the companies that made the mess. So here we are. We have the first ever national, legally enforceable drinking water standards for forever chemicals. It's a truly historic moment for environmental protection. But it does leave us with one last, kind of sobering question. After all these decades of widespread, unchecked exposure, after these chemicals have built up in our environment and in our bodies, is this monumental effort, as great as it is, just too little, too late?